Hi everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program PvP. I'm 4040, and today we are going to kick Nightshade's ass. So, what I've got planned is, well, to show you to see what's going on at the moment. Now, if you remember from the last episode, we went and scouted out Nightshade's fleet that has been assembled around the Mun. And there we go, zooming in there, and as you can see, we've got 1, 2, and where's the other? Angelus Devastator. There it is. So we've got 3 of these Interceptor type craft as is that we had a little bit of a look at, and we have the cruiser that's going to be causing us so much of a problem. Now, this fleet fight that we're going to have is, well, I'm going to have to do something with this fleet. And how we're going to be running this is that Nightshade has been allowed 3 consecutive launches to get his fleet into orbit around the Mun of whatever he chooses. So his 3 launches were the Icarus Cruiser and 2 of the Interceptors. He already had 1 Interceptor in orbit around the Mun as well, so that makes a total of 3 launches, and he has 4 ships. They are on quite an eccentric orbit there. They're up on an angle. So I've got to bring in 3 launches my own fleet. I also have the Tsunami 2, which is currently in orbit, in a polar orbit, which is going to have to change as well. Hopefully it won't burn all of its fuel. If it does, then I might not be able to use that to get a fleet together. So I'm going to come back out of this, and I'm going to show you my choices for the fleet. So let's go to the main building, and we're going to be launching our very first vessel for the fleet. Now, this first vessel is going to be our fleet support vessel. So if I load it in, it is going to be the Leviathan. The reason why I've chosen the Leviathan over my other large capital grade class ships is because that it's not just an out-and-out gunship. It's not designed just to shoot stuff. It is designed to provide drone support with lots and lots of small weaponry, and it is designed to help refuel any ships which are running low, and also provide all the additional support that this kind of fleet engagement would be for. I mean, this ship is perfectly designed for this fleet fight. In fact, this is what this ship was designed for in the first place. I've used this ship to go on a single-handed attack to Minmus and to clear out Nightshade's aggressive force around Minmus quite successfully using the drones. And the ship actually went into a standoff position and stayed behind while the drones did its work for it. And I also used the ship in an exploration type mission where I had different kinds of modules. If you see here, Leviathan 2 actually has that exploration module here on the back. This is something that we're not going to need for this engagement. So if I load Leviathan 1, that should just be our combat fleet vessel. At least I hope it is. So load that in there. Yep, definitely looks like the mark on Leviathan. It has, yep, small satellites on its top. I guess I could get rid of the satellites as they're not needed for this fight around the Mun. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to throw that part away just to help bring that part count down a little bit, just to help this ship launch, because I know I've not launched this ship in the updated version of KSP, so I'm looking forward to hopefully having a lot less glitchiness with bits just completely randomly falling off, which shouldn't be able to. As you can see, everything is wired together using these heavy struts, which have got an absolutely insane strength. So they shouldn't just let go and fall off, and they were. So there you go. So let's call this the Leviathan Combat. Alright then, now we're going to save that. I'm going to make sure that she's got a crew. Okay, so I'm going to have to carry... so lots of courage, and because this is such a big ship, lots of stupidity. Courage and stupidity. These guys are very stupid, these guys are very brave and stupid. I believe my action group should still be more or less set up. We've got engines, comms, 1, 2, what was 3 comms, engines, and then we should have, we don't have any weapons toggled. That's interesting. Okay, it looks like we've got the staging sorted out for launching these ships, because obviously the only thing needs of these. Okay, I'm happy with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you guys back in. You can watch the launch of the Leviathan. I'm actually going to do this as a cut launch, so if you'll see the major stages dropping off, but I'm not going to make you sit through the entire launch because you've seen it before twice, and I don't think I'm going to need to bore you guys too much. So I'll see you guys back in a second once we are in orbit. Hi everybody and welcome back. I've managed to get Leviathan up into orbit without any kind of trouble. It definitely looks like upgrading to the latest version of Kerbal Space has helped with the lag, with all of the problems with bits dropping off, so that's brilliant news. Well, as you can see, Leviathan is in orbit, she's in one piece, and this is the first part of my fleet ready to go off to the moon. I am now going to launch the second part of my fleet, or my launch number 2, and get that into orbit. This is the multi-vehicle deployment vehicle. I am sending up in one launch my prototype bomber, although I don't think it counts as a prototype anymore. It's been proven in the field that it works and has managed to do a lot of damage to Nightshade. And also one of my own Interceptors to at least try and match some of Nightshade's firepower that he's got up there. The bonus of Interceptors being that they are very highly adaptable and able to carry a multitude of different weaponry. I've kept the standard loadout of having one anti-large ship shot and multiple small ship shots, so we'll see how this fares against the other Interceptors. So, if absolutely nothing goes wrong, you shall enjoy a nice launch, and I'll see you in orbit. Bye-bye. I've managed to get my Interceptor and my bomber into orbit. In 2 launches I've managed to launch now a total of 3 ships, which equals Nightshade's number of Interceptors, and I still have another launch and I still have a Interceptor parked in orbit around the Mun. So, on that note, I'm going to fire off the next ships. I have decided that I'm going to use one of the vessels from one of the last videos I did, the Terminator Assault Fighter. And I decided that, as I've already got the technology there, I've got the launch capability to be able to take 2 of these Terminator launch fighters, meaning that I can outnumber Nightshade in our upcoming fleet fight. So I whacked this all together. I've done a few modifications from the original design. As you can see, there are these weapons down the side here. These are about the same as last one, but because they're more compact, I can carry more of them than in the original design. I've added some more powerful thrusters on the front because the ship was a bit sluggish in turning, and I believe I've added a little bit more fuel around the bottom as well, just to make sure that the ship can last the length of time. So, but beyond that, this has exactly the same launch stage. If I zoom it out for you guys, this has exactly the same launch stage as the multi-vehicle launch deployment thing. Exactly the same. So this launch should go pretty similar, really. It should just go up nice and fine. If you do want to build a ship like this, or a ship that launches drones like Leviathan, you are going to have to sort the staging out as soon as it lets go of another ship, because Kerbal Space Program usually cannot remember exactly what goes where. It just forgets and just lumps it all together. So yeah, that's just something to watch out for, guys. Hi everybody, and welcome back. I've managed to get the 2 Terminator assault craft into orbit. So now it's just the simple case of using what's left in all of the launch stages that I have. Every single ship that's gone up has got enough Delta V. If I check here, yep, more than enough Delta V to get to the Mun and stabilise their orbit. So what I'm going to do is do exactly that with each and every craft, and I'm going to cut back once I am in an orbit around the Mun that I like, and then I'm going to disengage all of my different stages, and we're going to start our lineup for the attack on Nightshade ships. So I'll see you in a bit. We've managed to get our entire fleet in orbit around the Mun. We've just ejected our launch stage, where most of our ships are still in their launch cradle, but we've ejected the launch stages, the very long rockets that what got us all the way to the Mun and to the right inclination just about. A lot of our launch stages were calibrated so that they only had just enough fuel, so some of them had hardly any left at all. Here's a little tip for you though. If you're dealing with a very large type of booster or rocket that runs alongside of your ship, sometimes when you put when you eject them, because of the weight of the engines, they'll spin around and hit the back of your ship. So if you rotate your ship along its axis, so rotate it on the middle point so it just spins, and then eject, they'll actually just drift away from you while they are ejected. So there we go. There's a little tip for you. Of course you can use little separatrons and boosters to facilitating it, but they will also, if it's very end heavy, exaggerate its spin around and it will hit you in the backside. Anyway, so these are the Terminator assault vessels, and what we need to do is separate them from their launch cradle. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to decouple this ship. There we go, and I am going to swap. There we go, and we're still pointing prograde. So all I'm going to do is turn on the RCS, and I'm going to back away from the launch cradle. Now, because the launch cradle is still attached to the front ship, and the front ship still has MechJeb on, it means that it should hold it nice and stable, because MechJeb is quite good at keeping things that you're not currently piloting doing exactly what you told it to do last. It doesn't forget. There we go. I'm just going to slow that down. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is just translate this just sideways, just to give it a bit of a speed sideways, and I'm just going to pull it away from the launch cradle. There we go. So now we're at a safe distance away from our launch, away from the launch cradle, and I'm going to let it continue on this velocity going slightly sideways. The reason being is it will move away from this ship here, meaning that when or if Nightshade targets me, it means that my ships are less easily destroyed as if they were together in a big cluster. So I'm going to decouple, let's get MechJeb out of the way here, from this one as well, and enable my RCS, and just tap it slightly to make me pull forward, and then I'm going to fast forward time a little bit. There we go, and just watch that just slowly slide out from within that launch cradle. There we go, what a majestic sight, seeing these ships fly free. Now this is the first time I've taken these ships on any kind of engagement. So we're going to have to see how well they perform. How well they perform in a hostile environment, because I'm not 100% sure whether they'll do okay or not. There you go, let's just spin her around, there we are. And I can continue fast forwarding time. And if you notice, my other ship's drifting off at a different angle to this ship, meaning that they shouldn't collide when I fast forward or do any fast forwarding with the other ships. And at the same time, they'll wait well away from that launch cradle. I could have left them in the launch cradle, so if Nightshade Industries does attack, the launch cradle might provide an extra layer of armour perhaps. But, and this is a big but, it does make these ships a bigger target and easier to hit, and these launch cradles are pretty solidly connected to these ships, so any applied forces to any of the outside of this will probably carry on through to these ships and break them. Any kind of impact or explosive force, because these are very solidly wired together. So I'm just going to let time just go on forward. I'm just going to get these ships away from each other a little bit. There we go, just wait for the time warp to scroll down. The other bonus of having these ships slowly move away from each other is that this lag, which is currently yellow boxing right now, will slowly get better the further the ships get away from each other, and once they pass out of render distance, then we should get a much more smoother operation. So I'm going to fast forward nice and fast there. Times 100, because these ships are moving quite slowly. Okay, that's definitely far enough for me to be comfortable. Yep, those ships are definitely separated enough. So, not quite sure what that target is there. So those ships are now ready to go on their missions. So this is pretty much more or less the same kind of setup. As you can see, the two ships here lined up. They've got a smaller launch cradle, which is this, instead of it completely covering both ships. So it doesn't actually provide any armour, it doesn't cover any parts of it, so there's no real reason for me to actually keep it. So all I'm going to do is right click on that, and as we come to our periapsis, continually face at it, and press that, switch to my bomber, there we go, and I'm going to ignite the RCS and back it up. Now you'd be thinking, why am I coming to Leviathan? Because it's not set on a launch cradle. Well, the reason being is, it doesn't have to eject in a launch cradle, you're very correct, but I actually intend on solar panels and cons, on deploying all of its solar assets and communications assets so that it can help coordinate the battle. And it appears, as usual, during the launch this solar panel is broken, so not quite sure why it does that every single time. But what I'm going to do is actually withdraw this little solar panel on the side as well. So if this ship is attacked, if we do lose parts of the ship, then we can deploy that solar panel. So what I'm going to do is actually eject these defense drones so they are ready for use when the time comes. So there you go, just click on that and decouple node. Now sometimes the nodes just like that kick the ship up and away. There we go. And yep, we have got a mech jib on this thing, although it is not currently active. Now this kicking action that happens is actually quite useful. Oh, you're going to spin around, are you? Okay, you're showing off now. That's fine. And are you going to kick upwards, or are you just going to detach? You are just going to stay there, maybe? I think you are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn on the RCS and see if I can pull you away and up. Decouple node. Again, this ship just kicks away like that. I'm not quite sure what's up with the docking ports that are on the front. My plan is to use these drones as perhaps a last line of defense for Leviathan herself, or if necessary to finish off a target, because Leviathan can orchestrate the destruction of the enemy fleet and defend herself, because she's heavily armoured but she's a big target. She has got her own weapons, but well, to be honest, she's a sitting duck. This is where the fleet commander, Anthin Kerman, is the commander of the ship. He's the commander of the ship. We obviously have the ship's captain on the front cockpit there, and the fleet captain, the Commodore, is Anthin Kerman, and he'll be engaging the Nightshade Industries fleet with his combined forces. There we go. You can see the two drones there, and you've got Leviathan probe and drone 3. So I need to rename that little guy. Okay, that is one thing I forgot to do. Let's rename him. So he's drone, rename vessel. Rename the vessel. No, not that one. Is it this one? Drone 4. Okay, there we go. We are ready and set up for our battle with Nightshade Industries for the control of the Mun, and ultimately for the control of the solar system, because I control Minmus. Once I fully control the Mun, then it's game over for Nightshade, because he has to fly past 2 of those orbital bodies with my fleet sitting in orbit, ready and waiting to deal with him. So all I have to do is make sure that I use all of the available resources at my disposal to make sure that Nightshade Industries does not win.